Welcome to another episode of Sedaru Live. I'm Adam Simonson, Director of Enterprise Solutions. Kevin Koshko's here with me. Kevin's our Chief Product Officer for Sedaru. Kevin, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. Kevin and I did a webinar, a little Sedaru Live webinar earlier in the week, and we're talking really around field mobile technology. And so we wanted to kind of come to you in this podcast format and talk a little bit more about how best practices around using technology in the field, making your field guys happy. And then I think if we have time, we're going to try to squeeze in some Winter Olympics fun. How's that sound, Kevin?
Sounds like a blast, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Nice. I'm sure you have like a Winter Olympics sport that you love, considering you live in Arizona. You know?
Yeah, no, it's a perfect place for winter sports. But keep in mind, I didn't always live here. I was born and raised in California, which is also a winter sports haven. I'm excited to talk about snowboarding and curling. So
nice. That's great. That's awesome. Well, and speaking of winter stuff in California, you've been to Flagstaff, right?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, which I had no idea was actually cold until I went camping in the desert there in October and froze my ass off. It's really,
it's a great idea. Yeah, you showed me a picture of the teepee you were in. That's right. Really comfortable. So
exactly. No, it was great. But I got to imagine when it does snow up there, everybody from the hot climate just hauls up there, right?
Well, it's only snowing up there when it's like perfect down here. So people just kind of skip that. It's nice when it's like 120 down here, and then you go up to Flagstaff and it's 80. That's more like it.
Right. So gotcha. So in the summer, Flagstaff is like a much bigger, like everybody goes up there in the summer.
Yeah, because that's a way kind of to escape the dry death.
Gotcha. Nice. So Kevin, I think a lot of people probably, don't know before you cut your teeth in the software business, you actually spent a lot of time out in the field turning valves.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. I got my operator's license in 2002. And I was, exercising valves and flushing hydrants and changing out meters. And it was fun to get in the hole. That's really how you learn and understand how, all this stuff works. And, it's one thing to, see it on a screen or on an iPad, but when you're actually out there doing it, it makes a big difference and provides a nice perspective. So,
well, in 2002, what were you using for technology to go? Like, how did you know? Okay, I've got to go turn this valve and then that valve, and how'd you track any of it?
Yeah, it was all paper maps. We printed it out. We would take the utility may have like a CAD drawing or something in a digital format if you're lucky. But most of the time, you were just stitching together these map books. I remember we had a project that we were doing. So as background, I was working for an engineering contractor. So we would do like the valve exercising and get hired out by the cities to help them out with their valve programs and hydrant flushing and so on. So we would, one time we got a big, huge system map that had just the entire system on it. And I remember
it's like up on a wall with highlighters kind of map.
Up on a wall. And so we're like, okay, give us a copy of that. So like, okay, they printed up this gigantic copy. It's like the size of a wall.
And Kinko's?
No, they had a big plotter. So that was a bonus. But so we rolled it up and then we took it to our friend's house that we were working with and rolled it out and then just got a ruler and an X-Acto knife and started slicing them up into map pages. And that's what we used to basically go through each side of the system and do all the valves. And that's, wrote out numbers on the pages, and that was about it, man.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, I was at a utility a few weeks back that did have the big map books with lots and lots of Xerox pages with Scotch tape. With different as-built over top of that, so it still exists out there.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I just remember we would go down and turn all the valves in a given neighborhood, but it was based on the map page. So if the map page was cut and there was a valve that was 2 feet away from you, but it wasn't on your page, you would just make a U-turn and finish the ones that were on the page. So from an efficiency perspective, it was actually like a terrible way to do things.
Right. So having done some of that, what do you think? What do you think is important from a field technology perspective? You know what I mean? Like, what gets you excited?
You know, the when I first like saw Sedaru Mobile, the biggest exciting point that I saw was just the way you could navigate the map. You know, working with mobile GIS systems historically, during training, like that sometimes was the most difficult part to grasp, especially when you had like a zoom tool, or you had to like draw a square around an area to zoom in, and then you had like, okay, now click your select tool and click on that, and oh, you selected these 4 things instead of that. Like that whole process of like getting comfortable with just interacting with the map, the way Sedaru does it, I think was like, just like, oh, cool. Like I can move and it's just natural, and I can tap what I want and that shows up. And like, you know, just getting to the data.
Yeah. And I think you hit on something there, because you were talking about, you know, having to click on this and do this. And what I have found is, if you get rid of the mouse, like make that a useless piece, make that not part of the equipment, you know, meaning let's go to tablets, let's go to phones in this day and age. It simplifies everything incredibly. I can remember years ago doing training at a city, you know, one of the first questions that I got from somebody was, and I forget the instructions, but it was something like, oh, click here or right click on this. And I realized, you know, 3 or 4 of the guys in the room didn't know how to use a mouse. You know, it was completely new to them, and I thought, oh boy, this is going to be a really long day. And if you're out in the truck, you know, you're never going to have a mouse. You've got like a touchy slide thing on a laptop that is at least an order of magnitude harder to use than the mouse. And you're just asking a lot out of somebody whose job is typically been to go fix a pump, inspect a manhole, you know, repair a hydrant, and to do all that work, and then to turn them into a computer user is pretty rough.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's a big thing. It was like, you know, trying to have something where it's just easy. So I remember I was training for a group in California, and one of the lead operators, he was the Scottish dude, and he was like all real boisterous and like not a technology guy. So, you know, we're talking about, okay, well, you know, are the pipes in the GIS? Okay, what about the IT guy? Is he, you know, are they using ESRI software? And like, so we're throwing out all these acronyms, and he's just like super frustrated. He's like, you know what? I don't care about IT or GIS or ESRI. It needs to be FM, effing magic. Just wants it to be easy, right? So right. But it's true, you know, we throw away all these acronyms, and, you know, let's get to the root of, you know, can you get the data? Is it simple? So.
Are you sure he was Scottish and not like a drunken Australian? It was a little, it was hard for me to quite.
That's a good Scottish accent. That's one
maybe,
of my
maybe. Send us everybody's listening. Send us a message. Let us know what you think of Kevin's Scottish accent.
That was my English Scottish. I can do it a little more cleaner, and it's a little easier to understand. But
now you're definitely in an Irish Spring commercial.
Thank you.
You know, it is interesting. I think one of my big things that I always say to folks is when you're deploying field technology, you better come up with a reason and a way of how it somehow benefits somebody in the field. Meaning that, you know, rarely do your field staff come in and say, hey, I got this great idea. I've been looking around at all this technology, and I think we should get rid of this paper. And I really want to make it as easy as possible for people in the office to do their jobs. You know, like that's not their viewpoints. So these field projects are typically driven the other way around. They're driven from the finance guy, the engineer, the general manager, somebody who's saying like, this is crazy. I don't want to use all this paper in the field. I want to collect more data, different data. I want it faster, et cetera, et cetera. And so if it turns into a utility project that is all geared around how do we make everybody if people's life in the office easier, you probably won't be surprised that your field staff aren't that aren't that enthusiastic. I mean, you think about it, like your wife comes home and it's like, man, look at all this. I just changed around everything in the house. It makes my life so much easier, right? And it involves you like sleeping in the basement,
Right.
parking your car on the other side of the street,
Right.
The only being allowed to use the pool, like, on odd days. And she's like, but this works out great for me. I'm so excited about it.
Right. Yeah, but you can't cook anything, and you certainly wouldn't be able to, do anything useful. Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny to see, and yeah, I mean, it's every time I look at like a really comprehensive like work order system that has all the bells and whistles and all the things that check all the boxes from the financial side and from the analytics side, and then you see the field rendition of it, and it's just, oh my gosh, there's no wonder that the adoption for some of these systems is so difficult. So it's really important to have that balance. You need to have Office functionality and make sure that they're getting the data that they need. But at the end of the day, it's like if no one's putting in the data in the field, it's a complete waste of everyone's time.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. Your project is dead on arrival. I mean, and when you go and do postmortems of these kind of projects of when they haven't gone well, and I've just seen it, I've seen it before my Sedaru days and with lots of other systems. It almost always boils down to the fact of they never got the buy-in from the field, or they really just made things harder for the field staff. And so they find ways to accidentally run over their laptop or to just basically flat out refuse. And I've seen it before where you come in and I'm like, well, so, hey, are people entering? How did that go? Did they enter the data in there? And it was like, no, they didn't. Well, it's like, well, why? Because they refused. And you're like, huh, and it really is one of these things of people going out there and saying, well, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to flow hydrants, or do you want us to, do a lot of more paperwork, and sort of the common sense argument ends up winning out over there. So, I mean, I love some of the features that we've done in Sedaru that I do think field staff really like. I've seen 60-year-old field staff walk into a training and just angry, like 8:30 in the morning, they're upset. Why am I here? And walk out of there an hour later and go, this is pretty cool. I think I'll be able to, well, this actually isn't so bad.
Yeah, that's one of the most rewarding things that I've seen in this business is going into a room just like that, where they're not excited about it, and then you find that some of those guys that hate it the most become your best champions, and those are the guys that the other guys are listening to, and it just spreads like that. But the number one thing, no matter marketing and cool factor aside, like it just has to be geared for them and make their life easier. If it can do that, make their life easier, where they're not thinking about technology, they're not thinking about the data or losing information or any of that, then home run. But
right,
so you get to that point, you can features it out till you're blue in the face, but it just has to be easy.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing I thought that I think has really changed the game here with this is just the ability to do so much more from a real-time fashion nowadays, and not doing these massive synchronization type pieces, where I go into the shop, I download all my work orders, I go out in the field, I put all that information in. And then if something happens in the middle of the day, it's like, oh, I can't actually record that because I don't have a way to do it, or they created the task in the office and whatnot, and then if something doesn't synchronize right, it's really hard to resolve. So the immediacy, like the instant gratification, we live in an instant gratification kind of culture anyway, right? So to be able to do it, have it completed, have it show up in the office, I think has made everybody a lot happier. Just the user satisfaction has really improved.
Yeah.
So, and we have the offline capabilities within Sedaru, but what I see more and more is self-service works in lots and lots of places that you wouldn't have thought it would work there 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, it's totally improving. And I think that's the direction where we're all seeing this. And, those holes in cell coverage are getting patched, and it's getting faster. I spoke with gentleman who worked with Intel and like, kind of has the inside track on like the 5G and all this stuff that's coming up. It's incredible. I mean, we are going to see, unbelievably fast speeds on our mobile devices. And so,
I mean, I routinely get like 30 megabits off my Verizon hotspot.
Yeah, it's excellent. Yeah. So.
Cool. So if you're interested in this stuff a little bit more, want to dig into some more detail, Kevin and I did a pretty cool webinar that we're demoing the software, talking about a bunch of stuff. If you go to Sedaru.com and fill out a demo request form there, we can get you a copy of the recording from that webinar. Or feel free to follow us on Facebook or Twitter at Sedaru Live, or LinkedIn there as well, and look for pieces posted there where there's certainly more info about these about the mobile platforms and what they're doing. So Kevin, I know you're a big Winter Olympics junkie. It only happens every 4 years.
I wouldn't call myself a junkie at all. But I'll tell you, we just got Hulu, so you can watch live TV now with it, and then of course all the other like streaming shows. But I'm pretty impressed with that. So I've been able to just hit on whatever sports that you want, whatever events that you want to look at, and it's kind of ready up and queued. But yeah, man, just I trip out on like the snowboarding, how that's like a real thing now. And, I just remember, like 15, 20 years ago, oh my gosh, I guess I'm that old, where like it was totally just like an extreme sport or whatever. It was certainly not like, Olympic grade, types of events. And now you're seeing it as like, one of the main ones in winter. So yeah, like the half pipe, then the like big air contest. I just think that's so cool. So yeah, it was really neat to see, Shaun White kick some butt and, get that, what was it, the third gold, I think. So
something like that. Yeah. I mean, the snowboarding is, those kids are so chilled out,
I'll tell you what it is. It's East Coast, West Coast.
Right. Maybe.
Skiing, snowboarding, right here.
Right. That could be. I mean, what I don't understand is how can you have like folks getting busted on a doping thing on curling, but yet these snowboarders that you can like practically smell the weed through the television are all come up clean. Like, how does that make?
We're getting contact highs just by watching.
Right.
But yeah, no, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, and what is that with how could you, with the doping and the curling, that's a trip. So I totally went curling once and it was like really, really fun. So, shout out to Beth at Mohawk Valley Water Authority, worked with her in her district about 10 years ago. And she took me to her curling club with a colleague of mine, and we went, and it was just so weird. Like, you see it on TV and you're like, what is that sport? And then when you play it, it's incredibly fun. And you just get into it. And
I mean, it's a drinking game though, right?
It's not actually. They got professional dopers and everything on it. So yeah, they take it pretty seriously. But yeah,
but I mean, you could be having a beer in between your like, right?
Yeah, it's just like a gigantic shuffleboard with, but you want to have if you had a broom or like a paintbrush with a shuffleboard, I guess it'd be kind of similar. But yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. So a refined appreciation for the sports that you don't really know about. So.
I mean, I feel like a good percentage of the Winter Olympic sports, you could probably have a couple beers.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially like the cross country and shooting one. I think that would be,
that one's like impossible to do that because you have to be in like phenomenal shape to be able to not be so out of breath and do it. But like, think about like the skeleton, right? That's where they do the face first luge.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right. You can't be sober for that. Like that is like, I mean, it's insane, right? To think like you just the whole sport is built around how much closer can you get your face to the ice to go that much faster face first, and they stop you on like a giant foam slip and slide that you basically crash every time you stop.
And then they call it like dead guy.
Right.
You know? So it's like, why, yes, that's pretty impressive, but
yeah. I mean, and what I do love on all those, like the bobsled and the luge and that stuff, is it's just how good the announcers are at getting so excited about something that you could never possibly see on the TV because they're going so fast. You know, They'll be like, "Oh my God, intern 8, did you see that?"
No, I did not see it.
The replay is they like nudged a little corner somewhere, and so they do a phenomenal job at getting you worked up about it.
I'll tell you what, but with their attention to detail, they should be engineers. So
that's true. That's not a bad point. Not a bad point. All right, very good, Kevin. Well, we'll have to wait to do our next Winter Olympics episode now. So I'm pretty sure at that point Sedaru Live will be huge. There'll be a few million people listening to it. So
by then, hopefully, we're sponsoring the Olympics. We'll be there on site, and all will be right with the world.
2022.
Yeah,
it's going to be big. Great. Well, listen, thanks everybody for tuning in for another episode of Sedaru Live. Like I said, follow us on Facebook, Sedaru. Look for Sedaru Live, Sedaru Live on Twitter, just Sedaru on LinkedIn, or go ahead and visit www.sedaru.com. And we hope to hear from you and talk to you soon.
Yeah, good times. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, Kevin. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye.